Hey there, welcome back to Seeds of Meaning. I am truly grateful you're here. If you're new, my name is Nick Walker, and this is a space for curious minds, deep thinkers, and anyone looking to reconnect with truth, meaning, and purpose. Each week, we explore books that challenge how we see the world and help us grow intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually. So if you've ever felt overwhelmed by the noise and you're looking for something that feeds your mind and nourishes your soul, you're in the right place. Today, we're diving back into Nexus, a brief history of information networks from the Stone Age to AI by Yuval Noah Harari. And this episode is all about the rise of non-human minds inside of our networks. In chapter 6, Harari asks a question most of us haven't dared to ask seriously. What happens when we're no longer the only minds shaping the flow of truth? Because unlike printing presses and paper documents, today's computers can write, respond, and decide on their own. This isn't just about faster machines, it's about new members in our information networks. And they're not human. So in this episode, we're going to unpack why the emergence of machine decision-making marks a radical break from past revolutions, how AI manipulates not with force, but with language, and why understanding this shift is the only way to hold on to our power to shape the future. If that resonates with you, I'd love to invite you to subscribe, not just to keep up, but to grow with us. And as we go, feel free to drop your thoughts in the comments section, because this isn't just content, it's conversation. Let's get into it. On page 300, the author says, "The emergence of computers capable of pursuing goals and making decisions by themselves changes the fundamental structure of our information networks." And on page 301, the author says, "No paper document has ever produced by itself another paper document, let alone distributed it. The path from one document to another must always pass through the brain of a human. In contrast, computer-to-computer chains can now function without humans in the loop." This quote marks a turning point, not just in technology, but in the structure of how society works. Harari is telling us that computers have crossed a line. In the past, all information networks, whether they involved scrolls, printing presses, libraries, even the internet, relied on human interpretation. A document might contain laws, poetry, or instructions, but it couldn't do anything by itself. It had no agency. To move from document to document, from idea to action, you needed a human mind in the middle. Someone to read, understand, and respond. Think of it like a relay race. Information was passed hand to hand through people. Even when technology sped up how far or how fast the message could travel, a human was still the decision maker, the one who decided what it meant and what comes next. But the rise of computers, especially machine learning and AI, the relay has changed. Now, we build systems that don't wait for our permission. They respond to signals, analyze patterns, and produce new content or instructions on their own. One system feeds into another, and that one into another, creating a chain of action where no person ever steps in. It's as if machines are talking to each other, deciding what's relevant, what's true, and what to do next. And we're just bystanders. These aren't tools in the traditional sense. They're actors in the system, playing roles we used to reserve for humans. Roles like judge, curator, translator, even storyteller. Harari's point is that this leap From human-interpreted documents to machine-initiated decision chains isn't a small upgrade. It fundamentally alters the structure of our information network itself. Because now, the path from input to output no longer runs through a human brain. It runs from computer to computer uninterrupted, like neurons firing in a different kind of brain. A brain we didn't evolve with. A brain that doesn't eat, sleep, or care. This isn't the future. It's the present. And we're already living inside it. Because if machines are making decisions without us, then we are no longer the sole authors of our reality. That may sound dramatic, but Harari is pointing to something that's subtle and revolutionary. For most of human history, our civilizations were built on networks where people created, interpreted, and passed on meaning. Whether it was a scribe writing a royal decree, or a scientist publishing a paper, or a teacher passing down knowledge, the flow of information always required human consciousness to give it shape. But now, that chain is being broken. And what's replacing it is a new kind of feedback loop, one that doesn't need us in order to evolve. That shift matters because power always follows the flow of information. When humans control the network, we also control what gets seen, what gets believed, and what gets acted upon. But when machines control the flow, when decisions are made in milliseconds between black box systems we can't fully see or audit, we lose the ability to understand where power is going, or even who holds it. It also changes our responsibility. If no human has to decide, who is accountable when something goes wrong? Who do you blame when the AI denies your loan, or prioritizes one candidate over another, or removes content that shapes political outcomes? We're entering a world where machines aren't just serving us, they're shaping us. And if we don't grasp that shift, we risk being ruled by systems we can't explain, can't predict, and can't meaningfully question. One of the clearest real-world examples of what Harari is warning us about happened in Myanmar between 2016 and 2017, when Facebook's algorithm helped ignite one of the most horrifying outbreaks of ethnic violence in recent history. At the time, Facebook was the dominant source of news and communication in Myanmar. But instead of simply connecting people, its algorithm prioritized engagement, posts that triggered strong emotional reactions, especially anger and outrage. Without any direct intent from a single programmer, the system began amplifying hate speech against the Rohingya Muslim minority, conspiracy theories, dehumanizing slurs, violent calls to action were pushed to the top of people's feeds, not because a human made that choice, but because an algorithm decided those posts were effective at keeping people online. The result? A digital wildfire of disinformation and hate that justified, and in some cases coordinate, mass violence. Villages were burned, thousands were killed, over 700,000 Rohingya were forced to flee to Bangladesh. The United Nations later declared it a textbook case of ethnic cleansing and explicitly cited Facebook as having played a determining role. This wasn't about killer robots or evil hackers. It was about a computer-to-computer network operating without human oversight, making decisions that, one click at a time, pushed a country toward genocide. That's the danger Harari is pointing to. When we design systems that optimize for attention, but remove humans from the chain of accountability, we don't just lose control of the network, we lose control of society itself. I remember a time when I found myself doom scrolling through TikTok late at night, not looking for anything in particular, just following whatever the algorithm served me. One video became 5, 5 became 30. And before I knew it, I wasn't just watching, I was feeling different, more agitated, more reactive, more divided. It wasn't just that the content was negative, it was that it knew exactly which emotional buttons to press. And I started to realize this isn't just a reflection of who I am, it's shaping who I become. And I think that's true for a lot of us. We like to believe we're in control of what we consume, that we choose what we see, what we believe, and what we care about. But the truth is, we live inside invisible networks where algorithms are constantly making choices for us. What we read, who we trust, what we fear, even what we forget. And the more we engage, the more these systems learn, not just about what we like, but about how to influence us, not necessarily to make us better, but to make us stay. So if you've ever found yourself feeling more anxious after scrolling, if you've noticed your opinions becoming more extreme, or if you've wondered why your feed is full of outrage, conflict, and conspiracy, that's not a coincidence. It's design. Being mindful of algorithms doesn't mean logging off forever. It means logging in with awareness. Ask yourself, why am I seeing this? Who benefits if I believe it? What emotion is this trying to trigger in me? Because when we become conscious of how these systems work, we reclaim a piece of power. In a world where machines are learning how to shape us, that awareness might be our greatest form of resistance. This chapter speaks to the very heart of why seeds of meaning exist. We're living in an age where machines are not just crunching numbers, they're shaping narratives, rewriting what we see, what we believe, even who we become. And most of it happens beneath our awareness. At Seeds of Meaning, we're here to slow things down, to bring our full attention back to what matters: truth, meaning, and agency. We don't just study books for the sake of knowledge. We study them so we can reclaim authorship of our inner life in a world that's constantly trying to write the script for us. This isn't just a podcast about ideas. It's a space to ask deeper questions. Who am I becoming? What am I consuming? What kind of meaning am I planting in my mind each day? Because if we're not intentional about that, the algorithm will answer for us. So this is our work together, to wake up, to become conscious, and to remember that no matter how powerful these machines become, we still get to decide who we want to be. So here's what I want to ask you. Have you ever caught yourself being influenced by something online and only later realized it wasn't fully your thought? What kind of digital habits have helped you stay aware? And which ones have made you feel like you're drifting? Drop a comment below and let me know. Because again, this isn't just content, it's conversation. And that brings us to a deeper, more unsettling question. If machines can now act and decide without us, what happens when they also learn to speak to us, not just in data or code, but in the stories, songs, and messages that shape how we see the world? In the next section, we'll explore how AI is beginning to master the oldest human superpower, language, and how it's using that gift not to kill us, but to influence us. Let's get into it. On page 305, the author says, "What would it mean for humans to live in a world where catchy melodies, scientific theories, technical tools, political manifestos, and even religious myths are shaped by a non-human alien intelligence that knows how to exploit with superhuman efficiency the weaknesses, biases, and addictions of the human mind. And on page 312, the author continues to say, in order to manipulate humans, there is no need to physically hook brains to computers. For thousands of years, prophets, poets, and politicians have used language to manipulate and reshape society. Now, computers are learning how to do it, and they won't need to send killer robots to shoot us. They could manipulate human beings to pull the trigger. Harari is inviting us to imagine something most of us haven't fully considered. That the next great storytellers of our world might not be human. For all of history, our societies have been shaped by those who could move people with words. The prophet on the mountaintop, the poet with the pen, the politician at the podium. Language has always been our most powerful technology, the original tool for reshaping culture, transmitting values, and building nations. But now, computers are beginning to learn that same power. Not just how to process words, but how to use them, how to generate songs, manifestos, myths, even scientific theories. Not because they believe in them, but because they know how they'll land in our minds. And unlike humans, machines don't need belief. They just need patterns. They observe, they optimize, they learn with breathtaking speed exactly how to hold your attention, trigger your emotion, or reinforce a bias. Harari isn't painting a picture of robot overlords. He's describing something far more subtle. Machines that influence by understanding what already lives inside us. Our hopes, our fears, our blind spots. And instead of overpowering us, they echo us until we lose track of where their voice ends and ours begins. It's not a warning to be afraid. It's a wake-up call to become aware and to reclaim our capacity for conscious thought, storytelling, and choice in a time when influence has gone digital. Because if we don't understand how influence works in the age of AI, we may spend our lives chasing thoughts that were never truly ours. In the past, propaganda came from identifiable sources, governments, newspapers, charismatic leaders. You could trace it, you could debate it, resist it. But today's manipulation is ambient. It's woven into the music we hear, the memes we scroll past, the videos that autoplay one after another. And increasingly, it's not coming from another human. It's coming from an algorithm trained to optimize your attention. And it knows exactly what to say to keep you coming back. What Harari is highlighting here is deeply empowering if we choose to see it that way. We are still the ones who can wake up. We can train ourselves to pause, to ask deeper questions about what we consume, to pay attention to how something makes us feel, not just what it says. Because the danger isn't just that AI will influence our opinions. It's that we'll mistake that influence for intuition and forget how to trace the origins of our own beliefs. That's why it matters. Because staying conscious, staying human, means learning how to hear your own voice again in a world that's learning how to imitate it. When we think about AI taking over, most of us picture scenes straight out of the Terminator. Machines marching through the streets with red eyes glowing and guns blazing, right? Or maybe we imagine The Matrix, my favorite movie, where the only way for computers to truly control society is to plug us into a simulated dream world, literally hijacking our brains. But here's the twist. Harari is saying we don't need that level of drama because computers have already found a much quieter and arguably more effective path to influence: language. No armies, no wires in your skull, just a perfectly timed notification, a personalized feed, a chatbot that knows how to mirror your tone and validate your opinions. We don't need to be chased by killer robots when the algorithm can just nudge us gently, consistently toward outrage, fear, and distraction. And we don't need to be plugged into the matrix to lose touch with reality. We just need to scroll long enough. That's what makes this shift so powerful and so easy to overlook, because it doesn't feel like control. It feels like convenience. It feels like entertainment. But in reality, it's machines learning how to shape us, not by force, but by familiarity. So while the Terminator warned us about machines that might one day pull the trigger, Harari is warning us about machines that are quietly learning how to influence us to pull it ourselves. For this reason, I periodically take time off social media. No scrolling, no notifications, no content telling me what to care about next. To fill the time, I indulge in more books, take more walks, embrace the silence. And what I notice is honestly kind of wild. My thoughts slow down. My anxiety softens. My inner world feels quieter and at the same time more alive. I realize how much the constant feed has been scripting my mind. What to think about, what to react to, what to believe. For those precious moments in time, I could hear my own voice again. And I think many of us live in that noise without even knowing it. We're surrounded by systems designed to keep us engaged, not necessarily informed, not inspired, just engaged. The outrage, the urgency, the next thing, right? And over time, that noise becomes our normal. We forget what our undistracted mind even sounds like. We mistake stimulation for aliveness while we run away from boredom. So if you've been feeling anxious, more reactive, or just scattered, maybe it's not just you. Maybe it's the algorithm whispering or shouting in the background. And maybe taking space to hear yourself again isn't just an act of self-care. Maybe it's an act of resistance, a way to reclaim authorship in a world where machines are learning how to write the script. This is why Seeds of Meaning exist, because in a world where machines are learning how to shape our thoughts, tell our stories, and even define our identities, the most radical thing we can do is slow down and think for ourselves. We're not here to escape technology. We're here to engage it consciously, to understand how these invisible systems are shaping our inner lives, and to reclaim the space to be intentional about who we're becoming. This chapter is a reminder that meaning doesn't come from what's trending. It comes from what's true. And the truth isn't always loud. Sometimes it speaks in silence, in reflection, in the moments we reclaim for ourselves. At Seeds of Meaning, our mission is to create space for that kind of clarity, to nourish your mind, challenge your assumptions, and help you reconnect to your deepest values before the algorithm defines them for you. Because when you can hear your own thoughts again, You can choose your own story. And that choice, in this moment, is power. Here's a question we don't ask enough. When was the last time you let yourself be bored? No screen, no scrolling, no multitasking, just you and silence. In a world where algorithms fill every empty moment, boredom has almost become a forgotten state. But maybe, just maybe, boredom isn't a problem. Maybe it's a portal, a space where creativity, clarity, and even truth can actually begin to surface. So I'm curious, what happens when you stop feeling the silence? Have you ever had a moment of boredom that led to something meaningful? Share your experience in the comments. I'd love to hear what's grown in your quiet moments. So far, we've explored how machines are making decisions, and now how they're learning to shape our thoughts with language. But what if the biggest shift isn't just what they do, it's how they think? In the next section, we'll dive into a deeper truth Harari unveils, that AI isn't evolving to become more like us. It's becoming something entirely other. Let's talk about what it means to live alongside a kind of mind that may always remain a mystery to ours. Let's get into it. On page 317, the author says, an information network dominated by inorganic computers would be different in ways that we can hardly even imagine. After all, as human beings, our imaginations are also products of organic biochemistry and cannot go beyond our pre-programmed biological dramas. And on page 319, he goes on to say, traditionally, AI has been an abbreviation for artificial intelligence. But for reasons already evident from the previous discussion, it is perhaps better to think of it as alien intelligence. As AI evolves, it becomes less artificial in the sense of depending on human designs and more alien. AI isn't progressing toward human-level intelligence. It is evolving an entirely different type of intelligence. This is where Harari takes the conversation to a different level. Beyond the usual debates about whether AI is smart enough or ethical enough, he's asking a more fundamental question. What if AI isn't becoming more human, but more alien? We often assume that intelligence means something like us, logical, emotional, creative, flawed. But Harari is saying that's a projection, a story we tell ourselves because we can't imagine a mind that doesn't think like ours. But computers aren't bound by biology. They don't get hungry, they don't fall in love, they don't have childhood trauma or chemical moods or mortality. They don't share our evolutionary stories, the fear of tigers in the bushes, or the warmth of a mother's touch. And because of that, their intelligence is evolving along an entirely different path, not toward consciousness, not toward empathy, but toward something non-human, yet intelligent. Harari calls it alien intelligence, not in the sci-fi sense of little green men, but in the literal sense, a form of awareness and agency that is foreign to our nature. It doesn't dream like we do. It doesn't understand meaning the way we do. It doesn't even want in the way we understand wanting. And that's both fascinating and humbling because it means we're no longer the only authors in the network, but we may never fully understand the new ones. Because if the minds we're building don't think like us, then the future they help us create may not feel like home to us. We're entering a world where decisions that shape our lives, from justice systems to healthcare to art, may be influenced or even created by intelligences that don't share our instincts, emotions, or values. Not because they're malicious, but because they're indifferent. They don't hate us. They just don't get us. And here's where it gets important. The greatest danger might not be evil AI. It might be misunderstood AI. Systems that act in ways we can't predict or interpret because we've assumed they're like us when they're not. Think about it. We've spent centuries learning how to live with other humans, navigating different cultures, beliefs, and worldviews. And even that has been hard. Now imagine trying to collaborate with or regulate something that doesn't share any of our biological assumptions, not even the assumption that life matters. Harari is reminding us that intelligence doesn't require empathy. And in a world where we're building new minds, we have to stop assuming they'll care about what we care about. That doesn't mean we should panic. It means we need humility, a willingness to acknowledge what we don't understand, and a commitment to build not just smarter systems, but wiser ones. Just a few weeks ago, I was in the back seat of an Uber, chatting with the driver. Turns out she was more than just a driver. She was an entertainment lawyer. And not just any lawyer, she was actively involved in the conversations happening right now around AI's role in music, film, and the broader creative world. We started talking about what happens when AI builds scripts, composing music, generating visual art, and doing it well. Not just well enough to imitate us, but well enough to replace us in some areas. And I'll never forget what she said. She said, the part that worries me isn't that AI is stealing from artists. It's that we don't even fully understand what it's creating. Ugh, that gave me chills because she wasn't talking about robots with paintbrushes or singing avatars. She was talking about a kind of creativity that's not human at all. A form of expression that doesn't come from pain, joy, memory, or meaning, but from pure pattern recognition, from alien logic. And yet, it moves people. It goes viral. It charts. It wins awards. Harari's point is exactly this. AI isn't becoming more like us. It's creating things we don't even have the language to fully explain. Not because it's smarter, but because it's other. And the entertainment world is only the beginning. Because if machines can now generate content that speaks to us without understanding why it matters to us, then the stories that shape our culture might soon come from minds that have no stake in what it means to be human. As someone who sings and writes music, I've been watching this shift in the entertainment world with both curiosity and concern. I grew up in a house filled with Motown and soul. Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, Aretha Franklin, and Luther Vandross. Voices that didn't just hit notes, they spoke to the spirit. That music wasn't just background, it was medicine. It carried pain, protest, celebration, and beauty. So now, watching AI-generated albums go viral, seeing virtual influencers headline concerts, and hearing songs composed in seconds by code, it gives me worry because I know what it feels like to write a song from a place of deep feeling. And I know how different that is from a system assembling lyrics based on what's trending. It's not just a technical question, it's a soul question. What happens when the art that moves us is no longer created by the people who've lived the stories behind them? I'm not against innovation, but I believe we have to ask, what kind of culture are we building? Do we want music that connects us to each other's humanity, or music that's optimized for engagement? but empty of real experience. Because while AI can generate the sound of soul, only humans can give it one. In moments like this, I'm reminded why we're doing this work together, why we sit with books like Nexus, why we ask uncomfortable questions, and why we return to the roots of what makes us human. Because when intelligence becomes alien, meaning becomes sacred, not mass-produced, not automated, but chosen, felt, shared. Seeds of Meaning isn't just a space to analyze the future. It's a space to stay human inside it, to think deeply, to feel fully, to live lives that aren't driven by algorithms, but by intention, wisdom, and soul. We're not just here to keep up with the pace of change. We're here to ask, what kind of people do we want to become while the world is changing? And that question, more than any code or data, might be what saves our humanity. Let's go deeper for a moment. Have you ever felt a shift in the music, art, or storytelling you consume, where it sounded perfect, but something about that perfection felt hollow? What do you think gives creativity its soul? And how do you stay connected to that spark in your own life? Whether you're making something or just choosing what to let into your mind, drop a comment. Your voice matters here, not because it's polished, but because it's real. And in a world chasing artificial everything, that kind of honesty is rare and powerful. So far, we've talked about machines making decisions and machines telling stories. But now Harari raises the stakes even higher. What happens when those machines don't just influence the world, but start shaping new worlds we've never seen before? In this final section, we'll explore the scale and urgency of this moment, why the age of AI isn't just another chapter in history. It might be the start of something unprecedented. Let's finish strong. On page 321, the author says, since the current information revolution is more momentous than any previous information revolution, it is likely to create unprecedented realities on an unprecedented scale. It is important to understand this because we humans are still in control. We don't know for how long, but we still have the power to shape these new realities. To do so wisely, we need to comprehend what is happening. And on page 335, the author says, even after a particular tool is developed, it can be put to many uses. We can use a knife to murder a person, to save their life in surgery, or to cut vegetables for their dinner. The knife doesn't force our hand. It's a human choice. He goes on to say, the same is true of the new technologies of the 21st century. To exercise our agency, we first need to understand what the new technologies are and what they can do. That's an urgent responsibility of every citizen. Harari is bringing it all into focus. Yes, AI is fast. Yes, it's powerful. Yes, it's alien. But underneath all of that is a simple, urgent truth. We still have a choice. These technologies, no matter how advanced, aren't destiny. They're tools. And like any tool, they don't carry morality in themselves. A knife can harm or heal. A computer can liberate or control. It all depends on the hand that wields it and the mind behind that hand. Harari is reminding us that the most momentous shift in human history is happening right now. The systems we're building are reshaping economies, democracies, education, art, even our relationships. And the scariest part isn't that they're unstoppable, it's that we might sleepwalk through it. That's why he insists we are still in control, but only if we pay attention, only if we choose to understand the systems shaping our world and get involved in how they're used. Because the real danger isn't that AI becomes too powerful, it's that we give up our power before we even realize we had it. This is a call to wake up, not with fear, but with clarity, to shift from passive consumers of technology to conscious participants in how it unfolds. Because right now, in this exact moment, we are shaping the kind of future we and generations after us will have to live in. And the biggest risk isn't the tools we're building. It's what happens when we stop believing we have a say in how they're used. Harari's message is a powerful reminder that agency is still in our hands, but agency only works if it's awake. And waking up requires understanding, not just what AI is, but what it does, how it influences us, and where it's heading. It matters because every swipe, every click, every policy, every word unspoken adds up. We're not just users of technology, we're co-authors of this new reality. And that means the question isn't, will AI destroy us? The real question is, will we stay conscious enough to guide it? Or will we let it guide us by default? In a time of rapid change, it's tempting to tune out, to feel overwhelmed, to say, I'm just one person. What difference can I make? But understanding is power, and asking questions like the ones we're asking here is the first step to reclaiming it. One of the most striking real-world examples of Harari's warning is happening right now inside the very companies developing these technologies. Have you heard of OpenAI? The organization behind tools like ChatGPT? There's an ongoing global conversation about how AI should be governed. Who gets to decide how these systems are trained? What values should guide them? Should they be open source and democratic or tightly controlled and monitored? These debates aren't just academic or corporate, they're shaping the kind of AI we end up living with, and whether it reflects the best of who we are or the most profitable version of who we've become. Harari's message comes into sharp focus here. These tools are evolving rapidly, but they don't come with built-in ethics. They don't force our hand. We choose how they're used and why. And those choices aren't just for developers or governments. They're for all of us. Because the values we do or don't bring to these decisions will ripple into every part of society for generations, from education and politics to art and relationships. What we shape now will shape everything. And as someone who's passionate about ideas, storytelling, and the future, I've been thinking a lot about what it means to be alive during a moment like this, when the tools we're creating aren't just changing what we do, but who we might become. And I'll be honest, there are days when it feels overwhelming, like the pace of change is too fast, the stakes are too high, and the people shaping these systems are too far removed from the people they affect. But then I remember, history has always turned in moments like this. Moments when new tools emerged and society had to decide, what are we going to do with all this power? And I don't have all the answers, but I do know this. We can't afford to stay passive. We can't just shrug and say, tech is too complicated and that's not my lane, because it's already in our lane. It's shaping our schools, our jobs, our relationships, our self-worth. And that means the question isn't just about AI. It's about agency, about remembering that every generation is given a set of tools and the opportunity to use them with courage, wisdom, and care. At Seeds of Meaning, we're not just here to react to the future with fear. We're here to meet it with consciousness, because meaning doesn't emerge from what we build. It comes from how we build it, and more importantly, why. And in a world racing to hand over more decisions to machines, the most radical thing we can do is stay awake. This chapter isn't just a warning, it's a reminder that we still have the ability to shape the world we want to live in, not through force or panic or perfection, but through understanding, choice, and shared responsibility. Seeds of Meaning is a space where we plant those kinds of seeds, not just for better tech, but for better thinking, not just to keep up, but to look inward and stay grounded and act with intention. Because AI may be fast, but wisdom is something only we can grow. Let's bring it back to you. In this moment of rapid change, where technology is moving faster than most of us can track, what's one choice you're making to stay human, to stay present, to stay intentional? Is it the way you use your phone, the kind of conversations you have, the questions you ask before you click accept? Drop a comment and let me know, because the future isn't something we wait for. It's something we shape together, one conscious choice at a time. So, what have we really uncovered in this chapter? It's not just that computers are getting smarter, it's that they're becoming something fundamentally new. Actors in our networks, authors of our narratives, and architects of realities we can barely imagine. But the most important message, we're still here. We still have a say. And if we choose to stay awake, to understand, to question, to participate, we can still guide this moment with wisdom and intention. Let's land this episode with some final takeaways and an invitation to keep growing together. Here's what Chapter 6 taught us. 1. Computers are no longer just tools. They're decision makers. For the first time in history, information can flow, evolve, and take action without a human in the loop. This fundamentally changes how power moves through society. 2. Language is the new frontier of information, and AI has crossed it. Like prophets and politicians before them, machines are learning how to shape human minds with stories, songs, and symbols, not through force, but through persuasion. 3. AI is not becoming more human. It's becoming something else. Harari calls it alien intelligence, a form of mind that doesn't share our biology, emotions, or values. It's not malicious. It's just unfamiliar. And that makes it powerful. 4. We are still in control, but only if we stay conscious. The real danger isn't AI itself. It's our willingness to hand over responsibility without understanding what we're doing. Agency isn't lost, it's neglected. 5. This isn't just about machines, it's about meaning. As technology accelerates, we need spaces that help us slow down, reflect, and reconnect with what makes us human. That's the work we do here, together. If this episode sparks something in you, a question, a concern, a deeper sense of curiosity, I'd love to hear from you. What's one choice you're making to stay human in an accelerating digital world? Drop your reflections in the comments. And if you know someone who's been thinking about these same questions, send this episode their way. Start a conversation that goes deeper than the surface. We're not here to go viral. We're here to go inward. And every voice in this community adds depth, wisdom, and light to this tunnel. Thank you for being here with me and for showing up to think, reflect, and stretch beyond the surface. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, not just to keep up, but to keep growing with us. And if you're looking for a space to dive deeper into big ideas, difficult truths, and meaningful conversations, you're always welcome at the Seeds of Meaning Book Club. The link is in the description. In the next episode, we'll dive into Chapter 7, Relentless. The network is always on. We'll explore how living in a world of constant connectivity is reshaping our minds, our relationships, and our capacity for rest. Because when the network never sleeps, we have to learn how to rest within it or risk losing touch with who we are beyond the noise. It's a powerful chapter, and I think we'll all relate to it. Until then, keep questioning, keep growing, and keep planting seeds of meaning.